Hello everyone, this is Ashutosh Trivedi here. You are most welcome on my YouTube channel Ashu Official 2021. In this video, I had a conversation with one of my friends from Scotland. I'm going to upload this video in two parts, so this is the first part of the video. So please don't forget to watch this video until the end. Thank you. Hi Gordon, good morning. How are you?
Hi, Ashutosh. I'm very well, thank you. It's a lovely morning here in Scotland.
Yeah, sounds good to me. But it's afternoon here in India, and I'm so happy that I'm connecting to you and as you are here. So I'm so happy and thankful to you.
I'm really delighted to be here, Ashutosh. Really delighted.
Okay, so Gordon, as we are meeting for the first time, would you mind telling me something about yourself?
Yes, certainly. So, the reason we know each other is because we were on Clubhouse together a couple of
Hmm.
years ago. And the reason I was on Clubhouse was I can't even remember the reason. I was there to do something to do with some training for mental health, helping people with mental health. And it turned out the group that I was there to meet up with, none of them ever got the hang of Clubhouse. So none of them ever arrived. Not even the person who told us we ought to use Clubhouse arrived on Clubhouse. So I was looking about for what was happening on Clubhouse, and I discovered a lot of people were using Clubhouse to attempt to improve their English. Now, Clubhouse is an almost exclusively audio app. So they were improving their spoken English. And it turns out that most of them were being taught to speak English by people who themselves did not actually speak English.
Right.
So there was a kind of onward transmission of poor English speaking. And I just spent 15 years teaching. I taught about 5,000 people. I hadn't been teaching English, but I had been teaching a lot of people, setting up systems for teaching, setting up processes, procedures, organizations. And prior to that, I was a management consultant and several other things. So, while as part of my management consultancy duties, I was a corporate trainer. I then became a teacher of children. And then I found myself in Clubhouse, surrounded by people who wanted good spoken English and didn't have any role models or native speakers to interact with. There were lots of native speakers in Clubhouse, but they were all somewhere else, doing other things, trying to build pyramid schemes and become rich and famous. And all the people who wanted to learn English were off in a different quarter of Clubhouse, in different rooms. And so I started a room which I called something like Native Speaker Gives Specific Feedback. Because I was a trained coach, and therefore I wasn't just giving instruction, I wasn't just telling you what to do. I would tell you what to do, give you customized exercises for your particular position of progress. I would then monitor those exercises very carefully, and then I could give precise feedback. So that was my core skill set. And I was now reapplying it to teaching English. And I'm a very high level user of English. I'm a methods author as part of my management consultancy duties. I've done journalism. I've written fiction. I've done a lot of writing, and I've been around for, well, you can tell by the color of my beard, I've been around for quite a while. So I had a lot of things to pass on, I felt, and I had a very particular way, a high level of teaching, not just instruction, not just information and marking exercises, but careful monitoring of physical processes and in the moment feedback. So I thought that's what I'll focus on in Clubhouse. And within a month or two, I had quite a large following on Clubhouse. which was great. Um, and I felt I was really helping people. And I also discovered I was giving about the same 18 lessons over and over and over again. People were asking for the same help as all the other people. I thought, that's interesting. I ought to write this up so that people don't need me there to find out what they ought to be doing. They can just read mine. At that point, I was thinking of publishing a PDF. And then Clubhouse changed. Yeah, you're smiling. You
Right.
know the changes I'm talking about. Clubhouse had been a really functional, really useful piece of software. And the people running Clubhouse decided that wasn't what they wanted. They would change everything about the user interface. And I discovered that I couldn't use the software anymore.
Right.
It just became impossible to set up a classroom. And so I stopped using it. But by this time, I'd networked, I'd made quite a few acquaintances and friends, yourself included. And there was also a phenomenal networker called Johnny USA. I don't know if you've had him on yet or if
Exactly.
you're going to have him on. Johnny is an incredible networker. What he did was he went out looking for a replacement for Clubhouse. And I was off doing other things. Johnny came back one day saying, Gordon, you've got to come to this new app I've discovered called Hi Local. It's the new Clubhouse. Come there. So I went there, started some classes up again, discovered the community is really nice there. The facilities are good but buggy, but feature complete when they work. And so I started the same thing again, but this time I started additional rooms because Hi Local had additional features. So I started reading rooms for people. I kept the one-to-one lessons going. And then gradually I realized that I was giving guidance in the reading rooms on how people should pronounce words. And the way it works is people would say something, I would say it back. They wouldn't be really sure what I had said. So I would type it up. And eventually I developed a consistent way of giving that phonetic guidance. And gradually, in fact, it started off just as pronunciation guidance, just the sounds of the words. And gradually it expanded to phonetic guidance, not just the sounds, but also the rhythms of the words.
Right.
I'll come back to that in a minute. And so once I had a very consistent way of providing that guidance, I was giving it, I would give maybe 15, 20, 25 words of guidance in a reading room. Sometimes ones run by me, sometimes reading rooms run by other people. And then after I'd been doing this for a few weeks, I suddenly realized if I copied and pasted the guidance I was giving into a word processing document, I would be able to copy and paste it back in again the next time the same words cropped up.
Right.
And then after just a very short while, I realized a word processing document is a bit stupid because I can't reorder the words alphabetically. So I put them into a spreadsheet so that after I'd given a list of words, I could rearrange the words into an order. And after a couple of weeks, I discovered there's a thing called basic English. I don't know if you're aware of it as an approach. It's an attempt to make a version of English which is as small as Swedish or Norwegian or Danish. I'm just going to digress if it's okay. English is a huge language. It has 240,000 words, give or take. So, on the order of 250,000 words in English. Norwegian has 10,000 words. It's 25 times smaller than English.
Exactly.
Swedish is about the same size as Norwegian. Dutch is about the same size as Swedish and Norwegian. Danish is about the same size. French is only 4 times bigger than those languages. It's only 40,000 words. Spanish is about the same. So it turns out one of the reasons I think people who speak English don't tend to learn other languages is twofold. One is English is already the world's telephone system. If you want to speak to someone in the world, it used to be you'd pick up the phone, you'd dial their number, but there was only one telephone system. There was no point in having 500 different telephone systems and having to choose which telephone system you joined.
Yes.
And it's the same with English. English is now the world's telephone system. It's the lingua franca. If you want to talk to someone else in the world, you're going to end up speaking English. In fact, I was sitting at a table in Spain, having a coffee in Barcelona. Lovely day. Unusually for a Scots person, sitting outside having coffee instead of hunkering indoors away from the rain and the cold. So it was a delightful experience. And I was there quite early. And over time, the cafe got busier. And some people came, a group of 3 people came and asked if they could sit at my table. And I said, of course. One was from Russia, east of the Urals. One was from the Netherlands, and one was from Chile in South America. So, of course, they were talking to each other in English.
Right.
What else are they going to do? And so, yeah, English is just the world's telephone system. And so once you already have learned the world's telephone system, you don't really need, anytime you choose another language, you're choosing one of, 2,000, 20,000 languages, and it's going to be less useful to you than English. Unless you're living in a particular place.
Exactly.
If I was living in Sweden, I would want to speak Swedish. If I was living in Norway, I would want to speak Norwegian. If I was living in India, I would be torn between learning Hindi as the Indian telephone system or learning, say, Marathi or Gujarati.
Right.
I would probably have to make a choice, or I would have to learn both. But the other thing about English is, as well as already offering you the ability to communicate throughout the world, it's huge. Learning English well is a big task. It's as hard as learning Norwegian and Danish and Dutch and Swedish and French and Spanish and Portuguese and probably some more language as well. So it's one of these things which is quite easy to learn basic English, but it takes a lifetime to master English.
Absolutely right.
And most English speakers, because we already have access to the world's telephone system and we can communicate wherever we go to an extent, our focus is generally on trying to master our own language just because there's so much of it. And so English is a big learning task. But there was an approach called basic English, which was designed for teaching other people to use English. And people realized that Swedish is only 10,000 words. Danish is only 10,000 words. Norwegian is only 10,000 words. Why don't we look for the 10,000 words of English that matter and focus on teaching those? Just 10,000 words. And so I realized as my list of words was getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, that I was starting to get quite a large proportion of basic English in my word list. And when I got to about 1,000 words, so I'm 10% of the way there, I thought I should start concentrating on not just the words that people have difficulty with in the rooms that I'm in when they're reading random texts, but also I should concentrate on the words which are the most important words of English. So I started looking for word lists of the 1,000 most used words of English. And it turns out
Right.
there are lots of these, and they disagree with each other.
Uh-huh.
So by the time I put in the 1,000 words from one list and the 1,000 words from another list, and so on and so forth, I had about an extra 1,600 words,
Okay.
all of which were claimed to be in the top 1,000 words of English. And so I had my word list, I had the 1,000 most used words of English. So then I started looking for the top 3,000 words of English, the top 5,000 words of English. And I ended up, I had a word list that had all the, so there's a thing called the Common European Framework for Reference Framework for Languages. And it
Mm-hmm.
suggests that there are 6 levels of learning. 6 levels of learning.
Okay.
And the first level is A1, absolute beginner.
Mm-hmm.
Then as you get better, as you move towards intermediate, A2.
Okay.
Then as you become an intermediate learner, B1.
Mm-hmm.
Advanced intermediate is B2. And that's B2 level is equivalent to IELTS 6.5. And that's the level people need for visa requirements, generally speaking. After you've got to completed B2 level, you're at IELTS 6.5, roughly. IELTS 6.5 is used a lot for visa applications. Australia, the UK, I think a lot of the USA as well. And so I discovered I had all the A1 words, all the B2 words, all the B1 words, all the B2 words. So I had all the words that people needed for IELTS 6.5 and for applying for visas. Plus, I had a big word list that I had generated myself of words that people genuinely encounter and genuinely use. And I had it in a database. And I had these words,
Mm-hmm.
both the words themselves and phonetic guidance, guidance on the pronunciation and on the rhythm that you should use with the words. At which point I thought, this is a dictionary.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
So I published a dictionary. And
That's
I'm
great.
really pleased with the dictionary. And it became an English as a foreign language bestseller in, let me see, the USA and Australia and Brazil and Canada and Germany and Spain and France and India and Japan and the UK.
Congratulations. That's very
Thank you.
nice.
I'm just waiting for it to become a TEFL bestseller in the Netherlands and Mexico, and then I think I've got the complete set.
Mm-hmm.
And then my next step will be to make it available in countries like Indonesia and Egypt, and to make it available in print. And the very first market that it will be available in print for is India,
Wow.
which I'm quite excited about. I'm almost ready for publication. There's a company called Pothi, POTHI.com.
Mm-hmm.
It's an Indian company, and it does print on demand. If you're in
Mm-hmm.
India, you go to their website and you say, please, can I have a copy of such and such a book? They print a copy for you there and then and post it to you.
Yes.
It's a great company. I'm really looking forward to having a book with them. At the moment, the book's available as an ebook through Amazon, and my next step will be to make it available through Google and through Apple iStore. And if anyone has a Kindle or a Kindle account or the Kindle app on their phone and is in India and uses Amazon, you can download the first 10 or 12 chapters, something like that, for completely for free. And I love the fact
Wow.
that you can get the first 10 or 12 chapters completely for free. It's available at the moment for the absolute minimum price I'm allowed to charge on Amazon, which is 249 rupees.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the electronic version of the book. It's 5,300 words
Wow.
and guidance on how to pronounce them. All of the A1 words, all of the A2 words, all of the A3 words, all of the A4 words, plus loads more. And most dictionaries are in alphabetical order.
Yes, they are.
So you can look up a word. That's really useful. But people tend to use word lists for other purposes as well. So
Uh-huh.
my dictionary lists all the words in alphabetical order. If you don't know a word, if you discover a word in print and you think, how do I pronounce that? You
Mm-hmm.
can look it up alphabetically. And then if you want to practice some sounds, there's also the full listing is available in phonetical order. So all the
Okay.
words that begin with a, all the words that begin with b, all the words that begin with k, all the words that begin with or all of these are listed separately as an entire list. And then I thought people generally have most problems with the vowel sounds.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So there's a separate listing by vowel sound. So all the A words, all the A words, all the E words, all the E words listed together. And I've selected, because it's a database, I was able to select just the words that just had that one sound in them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a list just with those, just of words, just with that one sound, and you can go through and practice. And then I thought, yeah, but some people are beginners and some people are more advanced. So I
Mm-hmm.
then re-split the list. So the list is also there in order of difficulty. The A1 words
Okay.
are together in a section. So you can go through the
Mm-hmm.
A1 words, build up your vocabulary for the A1 level. Once you've mastered those words, you can go to the next section, the A2 section, and master those words. When you've done that, you can go to the B1 section, then to the B2 section. And my hope is that people who go through the full set of word lists will be in a
Mm-hmm.
really good position to pass their IELTS 6.5 average section.
Exactly.
That's my hope. The other thing is that spoken normally, people come through IELTS and you're allowed to have an average score. And people
Mm-hmm.
tend to concentrate on the reading and writing because that's what their teachers have focused on throughout their English training. It's a very
Yes.
reasonable thing for them to do. I've done a lot of reading and writing of English. I'll get a really good score in the reading and writing, and I'll just scrape a pass in the spoken part because that's difficult, and I've not really had any teaching. So my hope, so one of the things I do at the moment is I'm a
Mm-hmm.
consultant on teaching English as a foreign language to a project that helps refugees and asylum seekers access jobs and employment once they're in the UK. One of the key issues for accessing jobs and even just finding out what jobs to apply for, you need English. You need
Yes.
the
You do.
English to fill in the job application forms. And then the crunch moment comes. You go to interview. All of a sudden, it goes from written English to spoken English.
Right.
That's a big jump. So, what I want people to do is to be able to do really well when they're speaking. I want them to speak clearly and intelligibly so that they are easy to understand. That's my goal.